Is this thing on? Are we live? I think we're live. This is Baitman Raw once again. This is going to be episode number 5. And thank you so much for all the guys that have been listening, whether it's on YouTube or on Podbean. I really appreciate the support. So I'm trying to get a lot of different guests on. And it's crunch time. I mean, FLW Tour just started. Congratulations to John Cox on that win at Sam Rayburn. A tough Sam Rayburn, different than what we've seen in the past. Um, it was a good event. Weights were a little bit down, but you had a lot of different factors there. Weather and timing on any lake in the country is a big factor where these guys are going to blow them out of the water or it's going to be a grinder. And John Cox is probably one of the ultimate grinders out there, and that's not going to be the first tournament he wins this year. I don't think. You can check me, fact check me if I'm wrong, but I think he'll win another event, whether it's on the FLW Tour or he's fishing the Elite Series. So I think John Cox is probably not going to have to worry about paying his light bill this year, is what I'm saying. But lots of new faces there on FLW. Enjoyed seeing Donald Gleason right there in the top 5, and I kind of like the John Canada character. I made a comment on Facebook where you could tell he was amped up and he didn't know it was live. And he's like, "Man, I'm about to have me a cigarette." And the camera guy was like, "Yeah, we're live now." And he's like, "Okay." And so I don't know if he got his nicotine fix. And I'll be honest, whether you smoke or not, I'm not a smoker. But it was a real moment. These guys get amped up and they need to calm their nerves. So it was kind of good to see that. I like seeing those different sides of the anglers when they get amped up after they've caught a big fish. And that's why we watch. Now, obviously, I'm watching because I want to see the baits. John Cox, for the most part, threw a black and blue bladed jig. I'm not going to make any assumptions, but I'm sure it was a jackhammer. But it kind of looked like he might have had a Project Z there. There's lots of standing timber there in Rayburn, so he may have went with the weedless Project Z. It's pretty cool. He actually looked pretty organized. They were showing a lot of shots of him when he was looking for baits. Matter of fact, he busted out a brand new crankbait right out of the package. So that was different from John Cox. We know him as a sight fisherman flipper, but he threw a crankbait a lot in that bladed jig, and he grinded it out. It was a nice win for him. But unfortunately, this week we lost a legend and a hero to many people in the sport of bass fishing. That was Forrest Wood. And if you don't know who Forrest Wood is, he founded Ranger Boats. And I personally never owned a Ranger. My father did. And when I was little, from I guess 4, when I can really remember, till I was 10 years old, my dad had this 17-foot Ranger. I don't remember the model numbers. It had the tall and skinny Merc on the back. It wasn't very big, but my dad took a lot of pride in that boat because it was a Ranger boat. It was ugly. It was like the big brown truck of boats. It was like turd brown with some glitter in it. It wasn't very pretty. It kind of looked like your grandma's old brown Berber carpet. But you know what? My dad and I made a ton of memories in that boat. And that's what fishing is about, making memories. And one of my favorite memories with me and my dad in that boat, I was probably about 7, 8 years old. And it was hot. It was July. And I know my dad was frustrated. I was changing baits like every 5 seconds. And we're fishing pretty close to the Moores area, a place I still fish quite a bit, called Camp Curry. It's a state-run camp, and they do archery and fishing and stuff like that, and a lot of brush piles around there. But it was about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I finally tied on a pawpaw. My dad said, "All right, now let that please be your last bait." I said, "It will be. I'm going to catch one." And in about 3 casts, I caught about a 5-pounder out underneath a tree on that popper. And my dad was super proud. He didn't help me. I took it off the hooks and everything. My dad said, "You want to run it back to the moors, and I'll get the camera out of the truck?" And I said, "No, Dad, this fish is bleeding. I'm going to let it go." And I remember letting it go right there. My dad was really proud of me. And that's a moment I'll never forget. And my dad was always proud of that Ranger boat. It wasn't the nicest one or the newest one, but he worked his butt off to get that. Now, he had to sell that boat when I was about 10. He had some severe neck surgery. He wasn't allowed to be in a boat for a long time. And that brings me to this. When I was like 21, I bought a brand new Skeeter boat, a ZX 225 Yamaha, had the works on it. It was Father's Day, and I got my dad a little bit of tackle or whatnot, and I really hadn't put much thought in it. Again, I'm 21. And I told my dad, I tell you what I'm going to do for Father's Day. I'm going to take you fishing. He said, okay, do that. And I took him fishing. And about, an hour or two into it, I'd caught 9 or 10 bass. He hadn't really caught anything. And it was about 7 o'clock in the evening. I said, Dad, I'm going to take you somewhere where you can catch some fish. He said, okay. And we pulled up to a kind of a gravel bank point where I knew some fish were kind of schooling in the evening. I tied on a 100, Aurora black color. Still got the bait. And he said, what is that thing? I told him, this is a new bait. It's from Lucky Craft. And he said, well, how much that thing costs? It's about $15. He said, $15? Son, you got a boat payment. I said, trust me, Dad, this thing works. And about third cast, I caught about a 4-pound smallmouth. And then I caught about a 5-pound largemouth and a couple, cookie cutters. And I look back, my dad, his rods were, they were on the back deck. He was just watching and said, hey, man, here, take this rod and use this. And I said, works just like a spook. It just walks a lot easier. And my dad looked at me and said, I remember taking you out in my old Ranger and showing you how to do all this stuff. And now you're trying to show me how to do this stuff. And this is the best Father's Day present I could get. Just watching you do the stuff that I taught you and catching fish. And those two things kind of interact there. And so I didn't know Forrest Wood personally, but I know what he meant to people. I know what the brand Ranger has meant to a lot of people. And Forrest was actually a really good friend of a friend of mine, Bill Schrader, and his whole family. They've been really close to Forrest Wood. And, keep that whole family in your prayers. And Keith Daffron and all the guys over at Vexus, where Forrest has definitely had a hand in helping them along the way. And, we lost a great legend of another sport in Kobe Bryant. Unfortunately, there's also other people in that helicopter. Fathers, brothers, sisters, people's grandkids. And it makes you stop and think. Life is fragile. We're not promised the next day. We're not promised the next hour. Obviously, Kobe Bryant influenced a ton of people. He was one of my favorite basketball players of all time. I would put him in as one of the greatest of all time. But Kobe Bryant was a good father. Obviously, not everybody's perfect. He had made mistakes in his past, but I choose to judge people by what they're doing in the present, not what's in their past. Because if all we did was pick at people because of their past, we probably wouldn't find anybody we liked. And a lot of people like to throw stones in glass houses. And I'm not going to get on a high horse and talk about all Kobe Bryant and all that. I think you know what he meant to the sport of basketball. We all know what Forrest Wood meant to the sport of bass fishing. And let's just, if you're a religious person like myself, you pray for them, you pray for the families, and, a lot of people are hurting right now. And that's just life, it's fragile. But we're not going to make this a sad Baitman Raw. We're going to make this a pretty positive Baitman Raw. And there's a lot of positive things going on. The Bassmaster Classic will be here end of February, 1st of March. Really excited about it. Spring is almost here. This dang winter fishing, I didn't go at all this winter. Didn't go one time. Really excited this spring because I've got a lot of new stuff from 6 Cents I can't wait to try. I got this new Axis square bill hybrid bait, and that thing's going to catch a few Jaints. I know it. Can't wait to get out there and throw the lipless. Love the Quake 70 from 6 Cents. Some of the new colors, and just get out there and do some power fishing. Got me some jackhammers today. I run low on things and got to get organized, man. Organization, when you're OCD like me, it's a problem. And I got me a shipment of Bass Mafia stuff in, so shout out to all my guys over at Bass Mafia for trying to help me get organized. And something I really want to document, there's a difference when you have a boat versus not having a boat, getting organized, because I can get organized all I want to here in my bait room, but then when it's time to go fishing with somebody, I kind of have a separate plan for taking stuff with me. And it's a whole lot different when you have a boat where you can keep things in a storage where, if you go fishing, you just throw a couple bags of this and you go, everything's in your boat. But when you got to go with somebody else, it can be hard because your mind gets to thinking, well, what if I forget this? What if I forget that? You just kind of got to simplify. And if there's one thing I've learned from watching these bass, FLW, Major League Fishing events on TV or on the internet, these guys keep it pretty simple. Yeah, they may have a boat full of Cincos, but they're not like me and want to carry 15 different colors. They keep it really simple, and that's something I personally am going to try to do more of this year. Let's be honest, you don't need a whole lot of different color rattle traps or lipless baits in the spring. You need a red, a yellow, and then something that's a chrome. Now, whatever version of red you like, take it. Whatever version of yellow you want, that's fine. And people go, well, 6 Sense and Lucky Craft and these companies, all they do is make stuff that catches fishermen. You don't need all those different colors. Well, you know what? I might have confidence in chartreuse purple versus the guy that's catching them on chartreuse black. Do I think that makes a huge difference? Not really, but me personally, I got confidence in it. Do you need 15 variations of red? Probably not, but you know what? There's something to be said about being confident in a couple colors, and we all like to see cool, unique colors. So there's tons of baits I've bought through the years that I thought it was cool, like the color, like the style of bait. Did I throw it and catch fish? No. Some of them still sit in the packages, but it's just like collecting anything else. Tackle hoarding is a problem. And I'm waiting for the Learning Channel to have hoarders, and some dude is just like living in Cincos and beavers and just rolling out of his bed with flukes falling out of the pillow. That won't be me. My wife won't let that happen. But anyway, speaking of tackle, I've got a really interesting guy, I think, personally, that's going to be here on the show with me. His name is Byron Childers. He is the national sales manager for Missile Baits, a great company. I've been using Missile Baits for a long time, when about the only bait they had was really the D-bomb and the baby D-bomb, and now they've really expanded. They got the bomb shot, awesome drop shot bait, the Ned bomb, which is, to be honest with you, when it comes to Ned baits, one of the first alternatives to the TRD out there, and it's very popular. And it's crazy how this Ned thing has really gone off. But Missile Baits makes excellent Ned bait, and we're going to talk to Byron. He started out basically as a sales rep, sales manager for Gambler Baits down there in Florida. But his family is kind of from where I'm at, and he lives around Nashville, not too far from me. And we're going to talk to Byron about Missile Baits, what's going on there, anything new coming out there, the industry in general, what kind of trends he's seeing as far as what guys are buying, catching fish on, and we're going to talk about some other stuff. And it's going to be really interesting. He's a boat owner, owns a very nice Skeeter boat, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you it's for sale now. He's got a new one coming. That new one's for sale. He knows a lot about boats, and he's kind of gotten into the swim bait game. I kind of tease him a little bit, but he loves to fish, and he's a tackle nut too, so that's why I'm going to have him on here. So I'm going to dial him up here on Skype and try to get him right here on Baitman Raw. And one thing before I do that, do want to give a shout out to 6 Sense Fishing for all they do here for the channel. If you're looking to get a discount on your 6 cent stuff on the website, use the code Baitman. You'll get 10% off your purchase. But more importantly, if you want a big collection of 6 cent stuff like I got, sign up for the monthly subscription box. You can get the tailored sack or the premium sack from 6 cents. You're going to get, $40 to $50 of baits. You can use the code Baitman Super 6. You'll save $10 off your first month subscription. So you can do 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, however long you want to. Cancel at any time. But I'm telling you, this isn't like any of the other boxes where you get about 3 baits and the rest is just filler garbage. This is good quality stuff from one company that's known for putting out quality stuff. And a lot of the guys on the Sixth Sense team, very, very tongue-twisting sometimes, they have put influence on what you're going to get. So, and hey, I'll be honest, the little bags are awesome. I got these things laying around on my house. You know how many Legos those things hold? A ton. So it's been great for me. So shout out to 6 Cents Fishing for all the support and continued support that's going to be going on this channel. So without further ado, we're going to get Mr. Byron from Missile Baits on here. I have my buddy Byron Childers. He's there in Tennessee, somewhere around the Nashville area.
Yep.
He's on the line, and he is with Missile Baits. So, Byron, let these people know who you are and kind of how you got started and how you got over there working with John Cruz there at Missile Baits.
Well, Byron Childers, I live in Pegram, Tennessee, outside of Nashville, like Kevin said. I've been at Missile going on my 2nd year. And before that, I was a sales manager for Gambler out of Florida for 13 years. But Val there hired me as a young man and put a lot of time in. I've known Kevin for the majority of those years. And 13 years there. And then, so in 2012, John started Missile Baits with Shannon and Julie and Mark. And never had a sales position. And I guess it was in January of 2018, we were at a show, and they mentioned that they were looking for a sales guy, and I agreed, even before I knew what any of the terms were, just because John's awesome. But,
yeah, usually when we talk on the phone in the past, it's like, hey, Kevin, got some new products here. Do you want to order any? Or it's, hey, Byron, I'm out of something. I need you to send it to me. And of course, now I'm not selling tackle, which is kind of cool because we can talk not business stuff all the time.
Yep.
And I will say, Missile Baits, man, they've really blown up in the last few years. And with all these,
big. There's a lot of momentum right now.
Yeah, with all these companies, your Berkeleys, your Yamamotos, your Strike Kings, Zoom, even Z-Man, that soft plastic market is so huge. But John's really, and the whole crew over there, y'all have really carved a good niche at being a major player now in some of that stuff, even to the point where, you see on Facebook and these garage makers kind of trying to knock your stuff off and say what you want to, but kind of made it when the guy in the garage is trying to knock off a D-bomb. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's what do they say? The imitation is the greatest form of flattery.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's something to be said for that. What I really appreciate about John and Missile is that everything is a John Cruz original design, and him being the elder statesman, one of the elder statesmen of bass in the elites right now, is that those guys are out there on tour, and I mean, they're fishing against the best of the best, and they're identifying these new trends, new techniques, and that's where these things come from. So like, we've got a couple new baits coming out at this year's Classic that we're going to launch, and those are a direct they came out of, that tournament experience. So there's a need for that. But he'll be the first one to tell you, man, what do you throw for a Senko? Well, Gary Yamamoto makes a great one.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to see us knock off a Senko.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to knock off the Zoom Fluke. Like, we all throw that stuff, because they're great baits. And there's not a whole lot that can be added to a Super Fluke or a Cinco.
Right. I had the pleasure of having John on a Facebook stream a few years ago, and that's something I remember him doing an article in Bassmaster on their
Mm-hmm.
website saying, if I want a Cinco, I grab a Cinco, and I respect that.
Yeah.
And, you talk about identifying trends before everybody was doing a Ned bait. Everybody's got a Ned bait now. The Ned bomb was kind of one of the first ones to really branch out there. I remember seeing you at iCast and you're like, hey, check these out. This is the Ned bomb. We did a little video. I threw it up on YouTube. And as soon as they got in stores, people were like, man, I got another option. I got another option. But it was different. It wasn't just,
It wasn't a
look,
turd.
it wasn't a turd. I mean,
Yep.
there are a lot of turds out there in the fishing industry that, aren't Ned baits. But
Well, yeah.
it's a,
But the TRD, I mean it was a half a Cinco. I mean, and
right.
that's the TRD is a great bait. I threw them before we had the Ned bombs. The Ned bomb was the first I would feel comfortable in saying that added a little action to it. It's got
Right.
that beaver style tail on there. And you'll really like the new baits we have coming out at the Classic. I'll just kind of tease with that. But
Well, that's fine. So missile baits going to have a booth at the Classic.
yep, we've got a 10 by 20. Actually, Andrea and Tim from Scottsboro are coming down to run the register for us, and they're going to have some of their baits in the booth as well. We'll
They
be
are really good people.
Bass University crew. So I mean, the party's going to be right there.
Are you going to have room for me at the booth?
Yeah, sure.
I don't take up much space, Byron.
No, it's fine. Yeah, you mean everybody's welcome.
Yeah. Speaking of Scottsboro tackle, I saw today on Facebook there was a big fire there at one of the marinas.
The Jackson County Park Marina there, the boat docks, like 3 dozen boats were destroyed. The docks. I'm not sure on the count, but yeah, that was horrible news. I reached out to Tim just to make sure everybody, was good there. And, I believe they are. So, but
Yeah.
that was a shame.
Yeah. Just, unfortunately, we've had so much, things go on the past week with For Sale Wood, and, the helicopter crash out west. And now you open up Facebook and then something again. This hits a little closer to some people, So best thing I say, keep your thoughts and prayers with those people down there at Scottsboro, and just sucks sometimes. But we're going to stay positive on here, and
Yep.
we're going to keep talking about some baits, and let's talk about trends. As being a sales manager and John as a designer and developer, what are some things you've really kind of noticed, aside from like everybody freaking out over swim baits? To me, it seems like everyone's either going really big or they're going really small. Is that something y'all kind of see too going on right now?
Well, so John and I had a conversation. I guess it was last summer. We're driving down the road together, and we're kind of going through like, well, what are we going to do next? And we kind of look because we all fish. Clearly, John does, but we're going through and we're trying to identify, baits that we throw a lot of that aren't necessarily ours. I like the 6.5-inch robo worm for a drop shot. We throw a lot of that. Shannon Wheeler that works with us, Dude Let's Fish, awesome channel there too. He throws a lot of robo worm stuff. So I mean, like, we're all fishermen, we're all throwing different things. So we identified, well, we could do something here if we can do it different,
Right.
or improve on something. And then a lot of it's dealer feedback. So this past summer, I spoke to a lot of our better independents and kind of got a lot of feedback from them about what they're being asked about the most, which is why we decided to bring out what we're bringing out at the Classic. Basically dealer demand, and then what you're seeing on the tournament trail. So we've got two different ways we can gauge things just by having a good relationship with our dealers. And we've got our pros out there, doing it.
Yeah, I think that's what separates some of the some companies from others. Sometimes you get a company they only want to listen to the pros, but the dealer's like, well, our customer base really doesn't care about the pros because that's not what they want. And then you got, vice versa, where the pros are like, well, y'all don't make nothing for us, so we got to go buy everything. So I think it's great that you're listening both ways. And as someone that sold fishing tackle, I loved it when if you called me and Byron said, "Hey Kevin, let me ask you a question. What's the deal on the big worm on Kentucky Lake? Is there something specific these guys are using or doing? What's something we can incorporate or put our spin on it versus never calling and checking, even if it's just a simple, hey, I'm not asking you to buy anything, just want your feedback. What's our product doing? Stuff like that. That means a lot to these dealers, and they want to work with you when you open up a communication line like that.
Oh yeah, or even if it's just to talk fishing, you know. I
Yeah,
mean,
we did that quite a bit.
we did that quite a bit, but I mean, just to try to keep a tab on what's going on in that local area, and that way you can make better educated decisions. But like the trends, it's odd, like you say. I mean, big swim baits, yes, that's going on. But man, that whole swim bait thing, I've kind of dove into again this winter,
Easy to do.
but it's a whole nother subculture, you know.
Yes.
And you hear about these people selling their conventional tackle and going all swim baits. Now, I'm not there by any means,
I'm
but
not going to do that,
I
or
can't.
else I won't ever catch a fish.
I can't. Like I go out there and I try to commit to throwing a big bait, and I'm like, man, I just like catching fish too much. Let me throw a shaky head, you know.
Yeah.
But there's in the missile line, we've got the power fishing baits
Mm-hmm.
covered. And our hole was really on the finesse side of things, so that's why you saw us come out with the bomb shot, which is an excellent drop shot bait. We're selling the heck out of them still. And then the Ned bomb. There was a need for a Ned bait with a little action. So we've really kind of been flushing out the finesse into things because we want to offer a more complete lineup
Right.
where it's necessary. So the Ned bomb, we brought that out at last year's Classic, and we were sold out of what we had in, I would say, a week. Like it was nuts. I've never seen a new product launch, and even being in the industry for so long, I've never seen a new bait just take off and explode that fast.
Yeah, I'll be honest, man. Finesse fishing's cool now. Like when I
Everybody
was,
can do it, you know. I mean,
yeah,
I'm selling Ned baits to dudes on Okeechobee, you
I
know. I mean,
literally just bought some Nico weights this morning because I looked in. I'm trying to get organized. It's a pain and it doesn't look organized, but I went. I have got no Nico weights, and I can't believe how many I went through last year as
oh
little
yeah.
as I fish.
Well, they
Finesse
slip
fishing
off.
is cool.
You know, you lose them, you know, either fighting a fish or casting. I mean, you know, there is a need for a better Nico weight if that
And
was subtle.
yeah, I mean, it you got to evolve, and other companies have done it too. Obviously, I work pretty close with Six Sense, and they're
Mhm.
trying to they they've got their niche on the hard baits, and they're getting into soft plastics, and I like theirs quite a bit. Uh, but I
And they've
haven't
been
put
very flattered here lately. So I mean, you can tell they're doing things.
yeah. So here's the deal. Some companies they just seem to be stuck on the same old thing, and also fishermen stuck on the same old thing quite a bit. You got to get out of the box, man. It took me a while to go. I'm going to have to get a spinning rod and reel. I'm just going to have to do it.
I'm
And
5 now.
yeah, I've got 3 rods and 1 reel, so I've got to get a few reels.
Yeah.
I'm a Daiwa guy. I really like that Tattoo spinning reel. I don't know if you've got one, but you need
Man,
to
I
get one.
I went when I got back because I took some time off and then I've gotten back into it pretty heavy the last couple 3 years. And I went Daiwa as well. So I mean, I've got all Daiwa, the LT, the Tatula LT 3000.
That's the exact one I have. I
Yeah,
guess great
got
minds
5 of
think.
them now, and it's a departure from growing up on Okeechobee, but you know, pre-east, Old Hickory, stuff like that. There's a bunch of rock around here.
Yeah, I've only caught like 2 fish ever on Old Hickory. As far as I'm concerned, that's a gar hole. So if you
Sounds
can
about
catch
right.
more than that, you're my hero.
Man, it's I've put some time in there this past year, and uh, you know, I go out of flippers. Flipper and I are real tight, but there's that lake for whatever reason sets up. You can throw whatever you really like to throw. You want to go finesse, you can do it. Carolina rig, crankbait, spinnerbait, top water. I mean, swim bait, you name it. There's somewhere to throw it on Old Hickory. There's grass, there's wood, ledges.
No, it does fish really good in the spring. I remember working for FLW. We ran a Music City division, and
Mm-hmm.
the first tournament of the year was out of Old Hickory. And it took like 23 or 24 pounds. And I believe, I could be wrong, but Kyle Mabry was fishing that. Kyle was a great fisherman, passed a few years back. But I believe he caught like a 20-pound sack there. There was a couple 20-pound bags, and from all accounts, Old Hickory fishes really good in the spring.
That's a big bag for Old Hickory. So
Now the jewel now is Percy Priest, from what I hear.
I like Percy Priest. I'm like smallmouth are still exotic to me, and to go out there and catch smallmouth, the occasional spot, and there's some decent largemouth in there too. But we've caught some big smallmouth there this past summer.
So let's talk about something I'll tell you about missile baits I noticed. And this, you can take this as a good thing or a bad thing. I don't see a lot of guys posting I'm on the Missile Pro staff everywhere. And I'd always heard that John takes a lot of pride in who he lets call or be on their pro staff. You don't see Missile Baits sponsoring Instagram ads to, hey, join our team and buy $50 of D-bombs and you can put a patch on your jersey. And I really respect that, that John wants people that believe in the product, use the product over someone that's just, hey, I'll sell my soul for a pack of worms.
There's so we call it the Bomb Squad.
Right.
But,
prestigious from what I hear.
yes, it is, and that's a good way to describe it. It is prestigious. It's typically it stays pretty full, and we work well with the guys that are working with us, and vice versa. They do a good job for us, but there are requirements. We require them to work and talk to their local dealers and stay in contact with me and kind of be boots on the ground in that area. And there's a lot of hammers on the Bomb Squad, but you won't see us, running those ads looking to fill the Bomb Squad because it's full. And what I'm kind of a stickler about is, and you've seen this just being in retail, but you'll have your biggest missile customer comes in there and supports the brand and buys a lot of missile from you. And then that guy gets on, and it may not even be missile. He gets on this rod company's pro staff or this other company's pro staff. Well, then you just lost your biggest customer.
Mm-hmm.
And if that guy's not in there pushing people to the store, that business doesn't get replaced, So it's a fine line.
Right.
Of being able to identify guys that can actually move the needle, because that's what that's about. I mean, we're not giving this guy patches and decals for his jersey or whatever, to go to the Tennessee game with. But you,
that was a real thing that happened.
Yeah, it was. So we're doing it so they can sell more product and help our independent dealers sell more product. I mean, that's the end result.
I'll be honest. I think that's kind of a lost art. When I was growing up, that's how it worked. It was, there was no social media. Actually, I mean, MSN Messenger was as social as it got. And I'll be honest.
Yeah, AOL before that.
Dude, I picked up a lot of chicks on that. But anyway, mostly because they couldn't see my face. But I don't mean that bad. Obviously, I went and met them in person. But you went into a tackle shop, and whether you represented a company, you were trying to help the dealer as much as you were trying to help a certain company. And if your company is not getting adequate representation from you at the dealer level, they're probably not going to get it at the national level. And I think guys, and I've seen this in the younger generation big time, hey, sponsor me. I'll tag you on Instagram, or I got 100 followers. I want the guy that says, hey, man, I don't want anything right now. Let me get you into a couple of shops. Let me show you what I can do. And if that guy's like, you get a couple calls like, hey, this is so-and-so at Trader Bill's in South Carolina. This is so-and-so And Bobby Joe's the one that told me carry your baits. I really like them. That's the kind of guy I want to look for. You know.
Yes, and there's a good mix of both though, because I mean nowadays it's a lot of stuff's driven on social media. So we do want the people with the YouTube channels. We do want the Instagram, the Facebook. I mean, all of that matters. So, but finding the guys that can do both well
Right.
now is an asset.
That's the key. I'm not sure I do anything well other than run my yapper sometimes. But
Well, that's
you know what?
that's
You know what? There's a lot of people that make a living running their yapper.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel like in my area at the time, you know, I've always done the online sales thing for quite a while. There was nobody doing that. And once I started really posting that stuff on Instagram and Facebook, it was like the online business kind of took off. No one's eyes was on it or anything. And now pretty much any online store out there, you look, they got Instagram stores. The hookup tackle is really good. If you follow them on Instagram.
Ben does an excellent job.
He does a really, really good job, man.
Yeah.
I haven't even, I think I bought one thing from him, and it was basically due to an Instagram post. I got influenced.
Little known fact, he's got, I think he's one of the few dealers that Working Class Zero sells right now, just because it's tough for him to keep up. So
yeah. So
I've already got mine, so you guys are welcome to go buy it from Ben, but you got to call him.
Yeah, I've got a few. I've only got one with a hook in it. It's got some teeth marks on it. That's a great bait, by the way. I know your buddy Colin likes that thing quite a bit.
He does. Yeah. We've been throwing the Citizens, the 6 and the 7, and then I'm trying to get my hands on a Battle Shad, but
I might have one. I might send your way. I got one in the last.
Dude, he's got that new version too with the head case deal and.
Yeah, so that's kind of innovative.
It's very innovative.
So Mike Gilbert, for those who don't know, actually comes from the skateboard community, and he's kind of really gone all in. Hashtag not Jason Christie in the bait building stuff, and dude, he makes a good bait, man.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've been impressed with the Battle Shads. You know, just from looking at them. Colin's got one, and then but the Citizens, I've been throwing that quite a bit.
Well, since you've been around baits, and I trust your opinion, you know, what are some things that we've seen that's kind of faded off that you see coming back, and stuff that's was really hot and it's really faded out now? You know, for me, you know, I'll be honest, spinner baits used to be the deal. Shops would always sell spinner baits, and now it's only a select time of year it seems guys buy them. I love fish spinner bait. I catch a ton of fish on it, but everyone's gone to bladed jigs or swim baits and other stuff now.
Man, I was talking about that with somebody the other day. Like, everything goes in a cycle, you know. Mm-hmm. Whether it be like the Carolina rig's a great example.
Yes.
In the 80s, I read something the other day, like the 80s was the it may have been in the latest fishing tackle retailer, but like the 80s was the decade of the Carolina rig, and then the 70s was probably spinnerbait, crankbait, something like that, more the power fishing, and then now the 90s and whatever it is today. But like, you know, when the beaver hit the market, that exploded, and then you had like the chatterbait deal that exploded, and I think the chatterbait or bladed jig really put a dent in the spinnerbait deal.
Yeah.
But now you're starting to see them coming back around, kind of from what I'm seeing. But I mean, you've got swim jigs now. People weren't swimming a lot of jigs back then, you know. So between the bladed jig, swim jig, and then the swim baits, like guys are throwing. You know, we make a Shockwave 3.5 and 4.25. You know, you got the High-Techs, the hard thumping, wide swinging. I mean, that's really doing what that spinnerbait was doing, and then you add the flashy swimmer to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's different things that have come out that might be easier to throw, that have kind of clouded that spinnerbait area.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, when I'm looking at a bunch of spinnerbaits over to my left, it's a whole lot easier to go pick up, you know, hey, I'm just going to go grab a couple missile Shockwaves and a pearl color, put them on a jig head, and catch fish. Where you go look at a spinnerbait, you're like, oh, shit, I got double willows, I got tandems. I've got painted blades. I've got this size. I've got hidden weight here. Which one do I throw? And where's bladed jig? Okay, I'm gonna pick up a green pumpkin jackhammer and I'll put whatever trailer on it. It's very simple. You don't have all these different intricacies in them. Obviously, there's different companies are built different ways. And spinnerbait fishing, that's why I respect the guys that are good with it because they know lots of ins and outs. You know, Jason Christie, Van Dam, those guys are really good spinnerbait fishermen. But they know all the ins and outs of when to swap this blade to this size and vice versa. The bladed jig, and for the most part, until you start getting into the glide baits and stuff like that, swim bait fishing is pretty simple. You just tie it on, you reel it in. You just bury your retrieve.
Yeah. Man, I read KVD Secrets of a Champion, if you remember that book. It came out years ago.
Yes.
And that got me all geeked out about spinnerbait fishing. I need to go back and revisit that. I'd love to get on a good spinnerbait bite, you know what I mean? But now with all the options, it's like, well, do I throw a bladed jig or a swim jig or a spinnerbait or, you know, I still throw a spinnerbait, you know, when it's windy.
Yeah.
You know? And I did catch some fish on a spinnerbait on Priest this year. But
I'll tell you, everyone always talks about the yellow flowers on Kentucky Lake, and I'll be honest, when that bites on, you can throw about anything you want to. I prefer throwing a spinnerbait, but there's nothing better when that water's up and you can throw a spinnerbait around those bushes, the flooded bushes and stuff, especially on South Barkley. Water's a little dirtier, and those fish would come and roll up on them. Man, I had some great times, you know, when I was younger doing that, and that's an awesome bite. It's totally different than anything else because it's almost like a visual bite, but they hit it so hard and it's so quick. I love that, but that's something we've just not had in several years.
Yeah.
But you know, you talk about the swim bait community; these guys are freaking nuts, and I don't mean it in a bad way. But...
No, it's a different world than your tournament, you know, style or tournament mindset, or you know, just the general bass fishing mindset. But there are some pros out there like Zaldane who incorporates both, which is cool. So I like to kind of follow what he's doing, and you know, just because he dips into both.
Yeah, he's made that mag giraffe pretty famous.
I've got a couple of them.
Yeah, I've got the 8-inch, you know, the famous, I guess it's whiteback shad or whatever it is, albino. I can't tell the difference. And I've got it knocked around several times. I haven't got a hookup, but the 6-inch one, I've caught several fish on it. It runs pretty good. But what I tell guys, and here's what blows my mind. So I get on Swim Bait Universe, all that. These guys are like, I had just started bass fishing. I want to get in the swim bait. And I'm like, first thing I would do is I would learn to throw a worm, a crankbait, and a few other things before I ever decided to dabble in this high end.
But you're thinking like a bass tournament guy.
Correct. I'm thinking of a
how
tournament
we're wired. Yeah, that's how I grew up. It's how I'm wired, and it's why I still like. I'm never going to sell my conventional tackle, but
there is something. There is something to that swim bait bite, and it's addicting.
I kind of look at it. There's a time and a place for it, and with me, you just got to figure out what that time and place is. You know.
Yeah, I've been definitely guilty of. I've caught a bunch of fish on bass tricks before. This is before Triton Owners Tournament, and they were good fish. And then during the tournament, man, they just wouldn't bite. I kept laying on it. My partner was about to kill me. He said, "God dang it, pick up a freaking worm, which you're good at, because that's what they're biting." Finally, I picked it up, and he goes, "Oh, look there, 5-pounder. That kind of helps us, doesn't it?" And I kind of felt like, you know, he just whipped his own dog there for a minute. But
well, I mean, it pays to stick to what you're good at too sometimes. So.
Right, but his point wasn't that he didn't believe I wasn't going to catch none. It was like sometimes you need to lay off those things as much as you like it. And just like he's a great crankbait fisherman, but he'll tell you, man, sometimes I lay on it way too long when I could pick a jig or Carolina rig up, and that's what they're biting.
Yeah.
But then again, that's a tournament mentality. If you're going out there and you want to throw the battle shad all day long, and you say, I just want one bite, you go do that and you get your one bite. It's probably going to be
a big one. But Colin and I were fishing the other day, and I was catching him on an underspin pretty good. And he's big bait, sold out all the way, big swim bait. So he's throwing that battle shad all day. I'm getting more bites on the underspin, and we eventually arrived at the same conclusion. Like we're both going to catch a couple big fish. But me, I just like catching fish. So like I'm still weeding through the small ones, But I mean, his ended up being bigger than mine, but yet he only got a handful of bites. We still caught big fish, but maybe I'm just ADD or whatever. I just like catching fish.
I take them as I get them. Limited time to fish, 2 kids, and
I hear you.
All that stuff. I'm not going to discriminate. Black, brown, green, white bass. I'll take them. That's the thing about fishing. No matter if you like fishing, there's a niche for everyone. Whether it's you're a flipper, whether you're a cranker, a spinnerbait, or swim bait guy. I promise you, there's a ton of people that like to do that same niche you like very, very well. And
and that's what's got me fired up about fishing again. Being from Florida, growing up down there 20 years, and then moving here, like this is a whole nother world to me. I mean, water over 10 foot deep, brand new to me. Winter fishing, I'll fish 12 months out of the year now. I love it. I mean, just figuring all that stuff out, and I mean, underspins, deep cranking, anything with a spinning rod, all that's brand new to me now.
Yeah, you go stick me at Florida, I won't last very long.
They're a different strain fish, man. They're finicky. They're very, very finicky.
Part of me says, man, I love punching mats all day. And the other part of me says, man, you don't even love flipping bushes all day when they're not biting. Imagine punching mats.
Well, so Guntersville's not far.
No, it's not.
It's not far. I was down there with a buddy a couple weeks ago, and this was before we had this recent cold snap, and we caught them dirt shallow on a lipless. You know what I mean? In the middle of winter, it was wild. But I'm really looking forward to flipping grass on Guntersville this coming year. And speaking of Guntersville, I got a date for you.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
We've got 2 missile baits only tournaments that we're doing this year.
Free?
No entry fee.
Uh-oh.
No entry fee, missile only. And we've upped the first place payout to $2,000 for first place.
That's pretty good for free tournament. I fished several of your free gambler tournaments back in the day. I think I won a couple packs of gambler worms. Didn't do any good, but you ran a really good tournament, Byron. A lot of people enjoyed fishing that, so I can only imagine how many people want to get together for a missile baits only tournament.
It's a good deal, and we bring in lunch. We've got it catered, and then the whole missile crew will be out there. John MCs it, and all that. But the first one, let's see, let me get my dates right. The first one is March 22nd on Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia.
We'll need those 48s, I believe.
The 48s will be a player there, and then the Guntersville tournament is May 9th. But both of those are online. Sign-ups are open right now if you go to missilebaits.com. Brand new redesigned website, much more user-friendly.
Yes. I'm not one to be too picky, but the old one was pretty rough on old.
The old one needed to be updated to what we have, yes.
It looks great. Whoever y'all paid, John, y'all did a great job on the
new Shannon, it was Shannon and John, really. I mean, they worked very, very hard on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can sign up for those tournaments there, and they're free. So
I don't know what I'm doing those weekends, possibly working, but there's a possibility I could show up if I found someone with the boat that wanted to fish. So if you're listening to this, you live in the area, you want to fish a free tournament with the Baitman and some missile baits, I can bring some missile baits. I'm looking at some right here. You can buy your own anywhere down there. I know Scottsboro Tackle has them, Waterfront, Guntersville Tackle Outdoors.
Tackle Trap, all of them down there.
Yeah, I really don't know many places that don't carry missile anymore. Walmart carries D-bombs. I found that out the other day. They had a whole rack of Super Bug. That's the hardest color to find.
That's one of the best selling colors.
Yes. So free tournament, I might have to get in. That May 9th. It could be
May 9th, Guntersville, and then Smith Mountain Lake, March 22nd.
Yeah, I think those lakes are really only about 4.5 hours from me. They're really not that bad. I've never been on Smith, but I've heard a lot of good things. And that in the March, it can be a really good time. Let's go back to Bates a little bit and Missile and the Classic. It's no secret, for me and some others that you and the Cashion Rods crew are pretty tight.
Yep.
You got Fat Cat over there. He's hilarious. I really like him.
He's a mess.
And then your buddy Paul Benson. I'll be honest, I don't know Paul that well, but we have some weird mutual friends like Chuck Belmore and Andy Cardwell. They're like in the bow fishing scene. So I don't know much about Paul, but that's pretty cool that he's into that. Cashin's going to be involved there at the Classic too, as well.
They've got a booth, and they'll be there. They're not in our booth, but they will be there. And I believe they've got some new rods they're going to unveil at the Classic. Pretty big deal, actually.
Yeah, I know they just come out with that. I made a joke about it. The micro jig rod, and I said, man, this is great. I'm a micro person. But again, they're also looking at that niche saying, hey, just like crankbaits, just like spinnerbaits, there's a void here in the market. There's that we need to fill because that small jig, that little Kitech or
the missile jigs, micro jig.
Yeah, the missile micro jig. And I didn't realize y'all had a micro football jig till the other day.
Well, that's brand new. We just we started shipping those 2-3 weeks ago. But yeah, 1/4 and 3/8 and the micro football. Gamakatsu hook in there.
I'm gonna load up because I like that Kitech, that little Kitech football. And then this company in here, Beast Coast, they make a tungsten football, but that micro deal is, man, you talking about when it's tough. And you need to get a bite.
Yeah, they will get you bites anywhere. And Iaconelli and John, they design all the missile jig stuff together, and they killed it with the micro jig. And but now for that structure style football head, it'll be perfect for that.
Yeah, I really like Iaconelli, and I'm not trying to say that as a fanboy, but you watch, you talk about YouTubers and stuff, and I've been on this high horse about pros trying to be YouTubers and stuff like that. Mike does a great job. Mike in the shot stuff.
Guys out there, him and Ish and John. I mean, they get it and they work their butts off. I wouldn't wish their schedule on anybody. I mean,
yeah. And I feel like they're not trying to go out there fish for subscribers and views. Like they're giving you real information that you need to know. It's not, hey, look at me do a fishing challenge with these kids and all. This is, when Ike sits you down in the shop and tells you about the chicken rig, it's very detailed. He describes how to rig it, why to throw it, when to throw it. Just like I've seen some stuff on John, how to drive your boat in rough water, some other stuff. And it's legit information that everyone needs to see. And it's not like he's trying to be a YouTube star. It's like he's doing this as part of his job as a pro angler to educate guys. And I really respect that.
The education thing is key. Because, you listen to a lot of guys and they're sponsored by so-and-so, and you feel like you're, buying a used car. To me and us, that's kind of a turnoff, because you're watching this guy's channel, these are his sponsors, and that's all you're going to hear about.
Right.
But if you take more of an educational approach, and when you watch John's stuff, yeah, he owns missile baits, but he's not cramming that down your throat. He's teaching you how to drive a boat, how to run your live wells, and how to throw a crankbait. Going back to the basics, color selection, the style rod, and he will suggest like, hey, I use Cashion, or I throw a missile baits D-bomb on this, but here's how you select these baits: the line, the rod, the reel. And where to use them, and he's really going back to the basics. So when you can educate, then people can make an informed decision. And from an industry side of it, when they hit that tackle shop door, they already know what they're looking for.
Right.
They've got the rod, the reel, the line, because they've watched a video and they're educated, they're up to speed, they know.
What I like about John's channel too is he'll do these videos where he's got 5 baits from 5 different companies. He says, I'm going to go out here and test them and give you an overview about it. He's not scared to say, hey, I'm going to pull out this new 6 cents, top water. I want to try it for a little bit,
Yep.
and I'm going to try this and that. Even a competing company's crankbait or soft plastic,
Yeah.
and I've never seen him bash anything. And honestly, guys, I don't think that's ever good. You shouldn't bash anybody's product. You can just say it's not my cup of tea. But he's very honest in that. And other, tactical bassin does a really good job
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. I try to, I make no mistake. I do a lot of stuff with 6 Cents. I'm affiliated with them, but you know what? If I go out there and catch him on a 5XD, that's what you're going to see. And Casey's not going to bat an eye because he knows, I'm going to use what I can to catch fish, and his stuff works too. But there's days, man, you just can't get them to bite your sponsor's product. And yeah, all these pros, they know that. And I look at some of these guys though. When they say all they own Strike King, I've seen some of their boats. That's all they got.
It, I had this conversation recent. So like, there's so many crankbaits out there. You've got Spro, Strike King, 6 Cents, you name it. Like, how do you decide when to throw which there? In my mind, it greatly simplifies it. If you kind of pick one brand and stick to it,
Right.
And that way you're not carrying 18 boxes of crankbaits like I do.
Yeah, dude. I'll be honest. I have a problem buying crankbaits.
I've got a bad problem. I mean, just tackle in general.
But I tell guys all the time that, and when you come to Kentucky Lake in the spring, if you don't have a spring crawl, Little John MD, you might as well not have crankbait. That window is real. There is a 2-week window when that is the only color, only bait they want. To me, it seems every tackle shop sold out, and it's because guys are catching them on it. Now, obviously, the rock crawler is a good bait. I throw it. Your 6 Cents square bill and the 6 Cents flat sides are good, and all the other companies, the Strike Kings, those sell great too. But that Little John bite, man, that's turned a lot of guys into crankbait fishermen. I've noticed around here that they go from that Little John in the spring, and it moves out to May, and they pull out the Little John DD or the Super
Little MD, the DD, I think it's the Super DD. Dude, the Little John really, that's kind of replaced all my other square bills, honestly.
It's got that same action as some of those old school balsa baits that I am not paying $40 for. Very close to like that Zoom Mutt, a little bit smaller, but John knows his stuff when it comes to crankbaits. Y'all can look back on my past videos. You can find a Baitman with John Cruz, and he really goes into detail on that. I think John's a very versatile fisherman too, and he's always been a nice guy to me.
And so, kind of throwing it back to Cashion, so Cashion's got 3 rod lines: the CRT, then the Elite, and then the John Cruz Signature Series. So, but if you look, talking about John's versatility, he's got the deep crank, the drop shot, which is probably my favorite, the square bill, the frog rod, the punching rod, and then the micro jig, and they've got a couple more that they're working on too. But they're simple, Well, what frog rod do you want to throw? Well, there's the Cruise Series frog rod right on the rod, and they're great rods, and they're tailored to John's specifications,
Right. So I get this question comes up in my live streams and stuff all the time, and people say I want a rod made in the United States, and it's kind of, I hate to say this, but a lot of rods are made overseas in China. That doesn't mean they're bad rods. Obviously, I throw Daiwa stuff, I throw 6 Cents and some others, but Cashion, they make their own rod there, correct? They roll their own blanks and everything.
They're hand rolled in North Carolina. Yep, from start to finish. Now they might use Fuji guides and reel seats, but literally everything is made and assembled in North Carolina. John just did a video not too long ago where he walked through the Cashion, factory there and showed the rods being built from start to finish, and it's gone over very, very well. Talked to several guys that work some of these tackle shows here in the last couple of weeks, and they're getting bombarded with people coming to the booth saying, "Man, I saw that video John did at Cashion. Had no idea that much time and effort and how many times those rods are touched before they leave the shop, or just what all goes into it. But they're all made in the USA, which is rare for a rod company to say, and extremely rare for one of them to actually show, here's
Right.
that rod start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, I think it's you just got Cashion, G. Loomis, and I guess Gary Loomis's, Edge Rod and the Temple Fork Outfitters. Uh, I don't know of anyone else that's just truly making rods in the United States anymore. And I remember when Cashion first come out, that was probably like 10 years ago. Showing my age, something like that. And they were incredibly light, had a different grip, and they sold like wildfire. And then they, I don't know why, but for some reason in this area, it really slowed down. Sometimes that has to do with the dealer or whatnot. But I got to hold one of the CRTs not long ago. That's the lower end one, correct?
Yeah, what I'd say entry level. Yeah.
And it felt really good for the price. And I've always been asked about cash and rod, so I said, when old Uncle Sam treats me right, I'm going to buy one or two to you so I can answer those questions guys ask me. So I'm glad y'all have a booth at the Classic, so I can kind of put my hands on it. I say y'all, but I'm glad Cash and Will. So there's something to be said for made in the USA. I mean,
in that same vein, like everything missile is made in the USA. We don't bring anything from out of overseas. All of our plastics are poured and bagged are here, and all of our jigs. So I mean,
yeah, I want to talk about the jig real quick. Yeah, the Ike's mini flip jig. I'm
mhm.
just gonna go ahead and say it. That kind of it really started a trend of these companies scaling down the jig and putting that heavy duty gamakatsu hook in it. Not a giant tuna hook, but it was a heavy duty, 3/0 hook.
Proportion to the bait, yeah.
Correct, dude. That jig is legit.
And I believe you're correct. That was one of the first, if not the first. I don't want to make claims, but
Right.
you
That's
know,
just off my recollection,
yeah, yeah.
which I'm
So I
wrong
mean,
a
you've
lot.
got your flipping jigs, like we make the flip out, which is a full size flipping jig, and then that mini flip is a scaled down version. Whereas the flip out has a 5/0, the mini flip has a 4/0 heavy wire. But it's a bad little jig, man.
Yeah, I think for the most part there for a while it was just the mini flip out, and then Dirty Jigs had the compact pitching jig, which I like. Very similar. I do like the head on the missile for those guys who talk about their paint chipping, which to me I really don't care, but the paint doesn't chip on those quite as bit. But
I haven't noticed it. I mean, I'd love scratching that paint off with a bunch of teeth marks, but I
yeah,
have, you know,
you know,
it's it's time for a new one. But
yeah, you're not claiming to be tungsten companies over here that no scratch for the rest of your life. We got the best tungsten ever.
we like wearing them out, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. If you're worried about your tungsten weight or your jig having scratches on it, fishing's probably not the deal for you.
Or at least you're not good at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not good at it. I
I'm not
still
either,
scratch them
but
up, but
yeah.
uh, these guys, I never know. I'll be honest, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I never got it. Whether it was selling stuff or even sitting back, and the guy comes in, he's got a $75,000 boat, he's got a $40,000 tow rig, and he comes in there and he says, "I don't like these tungsten weights; they scratch." Or I'm not spending $17 on a Lucky Craft jerkbait. I'm like, okay, but you can justify spending all that on that boat? Come on, man.
Ah, I mean, yeah, you described it pretty well. But
And I'm not bashing those people personally or
no,
anything. It just always seemed funny to me. Hey, maybe that's why they got that $70,000 boat, because they're like my dad. They're super tight, and that's
yes,
okay.
there
Uh,
and I should probably be more like that if push came to shove. But
so let's talk about your new ride. I know you're a Skeeter guy. I used to be a Skeeter guy. I had to sell mine, but that's okay. I'm just going to ride in yours.
yeah,
Uh, let's talk about it. You got a new 21 FXR?
yeah, FXR 21. Actually, I'm getting ready to head to Mississippi tomorrow um, for the Ferris Brothers dealer show, and be picking it up on my way back Friday afternoon from Open Season Sports and Marine in Camden. There, he's Ryan. He's my dealer, and it's showing up tomorrow. They're gonna rig it out, and pick it up Friday afternoon. But I'm excited. I got hooked up with Skeeter last year, had the FX21, and by far the best riding, best driving boat that I've been in. And then they say, I believe it or not, I haven't sat in. Well, I've sat in an FXR. I haven't driven one yet. I know you have,
Yes.
but they say it is a world of difference better between the FX and the FXR.
I can tell you this from a guy that's using a camera to film somebody. Uh, One of the worst things about bass boats is if you're trying to not film their backside all day is, get up front of them and shoot kind of back as they're running a trolling motor. There's not a lot of boats you can do that in. You can do that in this new Skeeter and not
Yeah.
feel like you're going to fall off the front end.
Well, that front deck, even like by the trolling motors, 8 inches wider. Um, Hell, it might be 8 inches on both sides. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's the width came from the front. And hell, Mark Menendez, I know he went with the FXR20 this year. He's like, you're gonna get your little legs worn out just going from the driver's seat to that front deck on the FXR21. Though it's a much bigger boat, which is awesome.
it's
That improves the ride and the handling. And
it's crazy how far bass boats have really come. I mean, when I bought my Skeeter and it was brand new, I thought, man, this is nice. This is awesome. It didn't take 5 or 6 years later. You got the I boat.
the I
That was a
class,
big
yeah, yeah.
upgrade. I worked for Mike Gaughton, and heck, he'd be like, "Well, I'm not fishing." I actually had an accident in my boat. It had a gas pump and did a lot of fiberglass damage. He's like, "Oh, just take my I class. I don't fish anymore." I
Mm.
didn't want to give it back. That sucker rode so good, and
It's crazy what the engineers down there are able to do. I mean, having the FX21, and you kind of think, well, how are they going to make this better? You know,
mhm.
at least in my mind. And then they come out with the FXR, which and they changed the hull. The dead rise was increased. Even like the back storage lids to get to the batteries or the access back there to the bilge. I mean, that's totally different, wide open now. So I mean, I'm kind of sad I'm not going to be there when Ryan and his guys rig out the boat, just because I want to, get up in there and see how everything's put together and rigged out too. But there's plenty of room for sure.
Yeah, I was over at High Tech Outdoors this morning. I stopped in there, and a guy asked me, "Are you a guide here?" And I wasn't even talking. I'm like, "No, I'm not a guide." And he asked me an electronics question. I said, "Listen, you're in a good place to get them rigged out. I'm that guy that I can show you what they look like on the graph and all that. But if your power's not coming on, good luck asking me. You better have somebody else on speak out." So I don't want to be around it when they rig it because I'm afraid if I learn it, then all these people that are always asking me how to fix it, I'll feel obligated to help them out. And I don't mind, but I'm just like, call someone that knows.
Man, so I
And
got out of it for a few years, like I said, and I had a Ranger years ago and had the Garmin because we got the FLW incentives, fishing the BFLs and all that.
mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's what I was used to. And then you get the Skeeter in with these Solix 12s and 10s and the networking and all the different stuff. I had a lot of catching up to do over the last couple of years. Um, and up until recently, I was convinced that I forgot to turn that little goldfish cracker symbol on my screens. Like, man, I'm running these things. They're supposed to be the best, and I don't know if there's fish down there.
Yeah.
But it's just now with YouTube, you can go on there and watch a couple of these guys that really are dialed in. Well, I had my side scan set out to 120. When you shrink it down to 60, I'll be damned, you can see fish. But
Yeah.
it's just those little things that I
Yeah.
didn't know, that I've had to learn and trying to update the maps and all that. And the front one's not reading on the back one. Well, I call a buddy. He's like, "Is your main power on?" I'm like, "Bye."
Yeah. I've been guilty of that on things too. Um, it, you know, I learned on an X15 Lowrance. It was black and white. We
Yeah.
didn't go graph I graphed ledges, trust me, but you didn't look for individual dots. I went, yeah, that's a school of shad. They're right up on the brake line. Let me throw that crankbait. Oh yeah, they're here.
Well, since
Uh,
you've got that side scan or the side scan on the Hummingbird so dialed in now, like like you can see the head and the tail and know
Yes.
which way he's facing or headed.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that ball of bait and know it's bait, and that bass is right behind it. I mean, it's crazy what they're doing now.
The two best guys I've ever been around on the hummingbirds, and this is just me being around them. David Genevico, he's from Nashville area, and then Jake Lawrence, who lives down there in Parents. Jake is so good; he can tell you by how thick the shadow is, how far they're sitting up off the bottom, if they're going to feed or whatnot. He is freaking good with them.
Yeah.
But he'll even tell you you can't always trust them. They are fish, and sometimes they just won't bite. Uh, but he truly believes if he can graph enough of them and they're set up right, he can catch those fish.
And like I said, I'm like our graphs on Okeechobee was your flipping rod. You'd stick it over the side of the boat, and if you could hit rock, you needed to idle more. If it was sand, you could probably get up, but we never even turned them on.
Right. We're going to wrap this up here in a few minutes, but I always like to ask some of those controversial questions.
Uh-oh.
Byron, and I won't make this too bad. Let's go back to the fishing industry in general. If there was a few things or one or two things you could change about the industry itself, good or bad, what would it be?
Mm. Um,
And it could be from tournament organizations to baits. I don't care.
it the innovation.
There's a good one. That's a good one.
The innovation. So I wish, and I know that we're doing our part. You know, we're trying. But just
It's
the
just so
blatant
easy for
copies
someone
and
to.
the knockoffs and stuff like that. To me, it's disappointing. I understand it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's disappointing. Um, I wish that there was a little more innovation out there, but I mean, I may not be the right person to ask, you know, because I mean, Missile's doing very well. There's a lot of momentum. You know, we've got a great team. We're happy, and so and we're focused on us. You know what I mean? So
That is a point that I'm glad you made. Here's what I noticed, and what I would say, I see too many companies focused on everybody else. You
I
know,
like to call it like instead of, and maybe innovation is not the right word, but be active instead of reactive.
correct, proactive,
Proactive instead of reactive. Yeah.
and I think that if you're listening to this, so and you say you're going to come up with a company and you're going to do this and that, uh, that's the biggest thing I see. I see too many people. They want to bring up the competitors. They're bashing them or whatnot. You know, sometimes I get it. The whole Guggen's bait 6 cents deal. I'm not going to say too much on it, but from the hard baits line, that was a pretty shitty deal. Now, the soft plastics, at least the Guggen things are different for the most part. But, you know, I get really tired when I see companies go, we just got this innovative deal or whatnot. And I'm like, that's the same thing I just seen on Alibaba like 3 days ago, or that's the same thing this company makes in your
And it could
repack.
be a do it mold. And I mean, I understand,
Yeah.
getting your feet wet and getting into the industry, and you want to get those, basic shapes covered, and it's not cheap. I mean, if you're
No,
going to do it, I mean, the cost of molds and then the runs and the colors, and it's
I
all
definitely can see doing that to kind of master your craft on getting the consistency of the plastic down, getting your colors down and stuff like that. But then once you get to that level where you want to try to get into, dealers or wherever or tackle warehouse, you're going to have to offer these guys something different. I mean, let's be honest. You want to come in and tackle warehouse, you can't just come in there and say, well, here's all my baits, but they look just like everything Zoom makes. It's going to be really hard for them
Yeah.
to
I mean,
just
it's not easy, coming up with new and innovative things. I mean, we beat our heads against the wall all the time just trying to name colors, much less come up with, you know, new and different stuff. And I'm really glad that that's John's job. I much prefer the
he
sales
has
part.
done a great job with the color naming. I must say, is a guy that my dream job in the industry, if anyone's ever listened, I want to be that guy that names your colors. That's it. That's all I want to do is name the colors.
See,
Uh,
I don't. We'll have to call you next time and get some input on that because John will send me a list and, what do you think of green pumpkin? Then I'm like, man, let's call it green pumpkin that. You
yeah.
know?
Uh, There, there's a fine line too, and so I'll make this point on the colors names. I'm not gonna mention the company, but they come out with a bunch of stuff. Uh, this fall it was ICAST, and there's weird names like frog cakes and all these weird stuff, and I'm like, now if you're a customer and you walk in that store and you say, "Hey, you got a frog cake square bill," I'm gonna go, "What is that?"
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have a
Can't get too
realistic.
far out in the weeds.
You have to have a realistic name. If you got green pumpkin burst or green pumpkin swirl, me as someone in a shop or a customer, I'm going to know that's a variation of green pumpkin. But if you call it like, chocolate punch bowl, I'm going to be like, what in the world? So there's nothing wrong with being plain Jane and, Bama craw or dill pickle or stuff like this. Superbug. Now everybody knows green pumpkin with black and blue is superbug. You can
Yep.
call it what you
Yep.
want to, but
So like
everyone knows that from missile.
we've got 6 new core shot colors that we just came out with in the Ned Bomb, and one of them's Blutonium core, which and you can kind of
It's going to
figure
have a blue core
got
to
some
it.
blue in it, in the core, but it's a green pumpkin blue with the clear on the outside. But then watermelon red core. Like, what else are you going to call that? Golden shiner core, silver flash core. It.
So those be available at the classic for us to peep.
Man, they're available now.
Oh, okay.
They're in most of our major independents. And then the online guys, they've got them. They're up on our site. You can check them out. But you'll really want to check out the new classic release. We're kind of keeping that under wraps until the classic, but those are going to go over really well.
Is it magnum sized?
You may not be wrong.
Uh-oh. I've heard rumors, and I'd be excited. So that means I'm coming by the booth at the classic. Like I said, I got to do some on the water stuff with Mark and some other people, but I'm gonna come by at the Missile Baits booth. So we're gonna wrap this up, Byron. I'm glad to have you on here. Anytime you want to come on and talk baits or make fun of the Googans or whatever it is you do.
Yeah, we were kind of all over the place, but no, I appreciate it, man.
No, that's me. I'm going to be all over the place because I have ADD too. So
yeah,
one time we talk about this topic, then I want to talk about this, and then we come back. But I really appreciate you being on here, guy. Respect. I know you work hard for Mr. Cruz and Missile Baits, and y'all have done an awesome job. And that's one reason I want to have you on here.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.